Hi, HR Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world, the leading global brands. Today, I'm really excited to introduce all of you to Sandra Quince, who's the CEO at Paradigm for Parity. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well, Chris. Thanks so much for having me.
Nice to see you. I'm really excited to share your story with our audience. Honestly, it's not every day I come across someone that has your particular background, journey, and experience to where we are now. Is very unique, and actually I'm really excited for you and all of the work that you're doing. So I'm going to stop talking, tell everyone a little bit more about you personally and your journey to this new role where you are right now.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much. It has definitely been a journey, right? And so I personally am from the South in the United States. When we say the South, I'm from the
I would
deep
never
South.
have noticed that, by the way. You got no accent that gives that away. So I just wanted to point it out.
I know. I have to preface that because I am from Mississippi and spent my formative years there, grew up there with my family, my great grandmother. In fact, my cousin is the mayor, so it's not a really big city. Yes. But we are famous because we are on the show Hometown. So if you watch HGTV, Hometown is based out of Laurel, Mississippi. So nice. That's our claim to fame right now. But yes, I'm from the South. I'm married to an amazing man who is in television news, so doing his thing up in with Spectrum up in New York. And we have one son who is 17, who had just graduated from high school. So we're going to be empty nesters here soon.
How's it feel? You excited and terrified at the same time?
That's right. Yeah. So what you see on my face is all of those emotions. But that's a little bit about me personally. Besides that, I love to eat, shop, and sleep whenever I can.
In that order.
That's right.
You're like, that's
the
it.
Important things.
The important things.
The important things. That's right. So my journey, I have been with Bank of America for 20 plus years. It's the only job I've known. I came out of high school not high school, but college, into banking. And so why is that important? Because you didn't say anything about Bank of America in my intro. That's important because I am the CEO of Paradigm for Parity, but I'm the CEO of Paradigm for Parity through Bank of America's Leader on Loan program. And so how did I get here? Well, I have 15 plus years of HR experience with the company. I was a diversity and inclusion executive, leading and helping to lead the global strategy, working directly with our CEO and chief diversity officer and our global diversity and inclusion council that we have that really helps to govern and execute on DE&I within the organization. I was also the diversity and inclusion executive for HR within the company. And I also helped to lead the strategy around our Asian employees as well as religious inclusion. So I had a really big remit within the company and enjoyed every minute of my journey. I started off in the business years ago, so I've matriculated through. I've done,
How many roles have you had, by the way? Because how long did you say again? 20 plus years, did you say?
It's been right? 20 plus years,
wow, in the same company. How many roles have you had? Have you lost count?
So let me see. 1, 2, 3. It's probably been about 7 roles that I've had in the company. And when you work for a company as big as Bank of America, I mean, there are so many things you can do. And sometimes people just don't realize a massive company, over 200,000 employees. I mean, so you can pretty much, if you have a law degree, you can come and work for Bank of America and be a lawyer.
Is that what kept you there so long then, that opportunity?
Those opportunities to really grow and enhance my career. I won't say that it didn't come without challenges and some opportunities for growth for me personally, and some of the lessons that I learned along the way. But how did I get specifically to Paradigm for Parity? I had expressed to my leaders at Bank of America that, so let me back up, Chris, because one of the things that I realized some years ago, which I really wished I had known when I first started working, is that you own your career 100%. And it's important for you to manage your career within a company and to understand the value and the worth that you bring and how to articulate what's next for you. It's also important that you understand sponsorship versus mentorship and leverage sponsorship to really help you grow your career in a company. It's critically important that you manage your brand and that you also understand the value of networking. Who knows you? Who knows your worth and value? Who knows what you're capable of? And then it's important to have a really good relationship with your manager. And so I did. Cynthia Bowman is the Chief Diversity Officer at Bank of America. And I went to her and I said, Cynthia, it's time for me to do something else. I love what I'm doing. I love this company, but I know that it is time for me to sort of spread my wings and sort of lead my own shop, right? And so she was very supportive. I told her I was looking externally as well as internally. And so one of the things that I know about Cynthia Bowman is she is really good at managing talent and retaining talent. And an opportunity came up for first of all, Bank of America has had a relationship with Paradigm for Parity for several years. And we have partnered with them around gender parity. And so, because that's extremely important to our company, and it's what Paradigm for Parity does, and I'll go into more detail in a moment. But there was an opportunity. Paradigm for Parity was looking for a CEO at the time. They had already started their interview process. They were ready for a shift and a change. They were going from a more volunteerism to more of an operational and leader-led organization. And so had been around for about 4.5 years, and they really needed to shift their model, their organizational model, because of the growth that they were experiencing. And so, of course, that conversation led its way to Bank of America, and one thing led to the other. And I received a phone call from Cynthia and say, hey, I have this wonderful opportunity. It's for a CEO role. And I honestly almost fell out my chair.
You're like, what?
When she said it, because I was like, what are you talking about? And honestly was, you're excited, but you're terrified, sort of that same emotional roller coaster, because yes, I was excited because it's a wonderful opportunity, but terrified because I had not been a CEO and wasn't sure that I could do it. And, but she knew me better than I knew myself, so to speak, and said, no, we will support you. We know that you're the right person for this role, and we want to offer you up to be able to have this experience, exposure, and education.
So explain it for everyone as well. So you're still being paid by Bank of America. You're still an employee, but then you have like a 1 year, what do you call it, contract with Paradigm? Assignment contract.
Yeah.
And can we say that you've also just renewed that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You've renewed it for another year, so clearly you're enjoying it. And also, let's be honest, your first CEO role in the exact area that you're most passionate about, that aligns with your why and your values. It couldn't be better.
It couldn't be better, and it was a perfect fit. And so I'm excited to have joined Paradigm for Parity. And, look, we partner with organizations to help them think about and execute on their gender parity, their journey around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and more specifically in the gender parity area, along with the lens on racial equity, because that's extremely important as well. And so we're extremely excited at Paradigm for Parity because of all the great work that we're able to do. We have over 140 plus organizations that are part of our coalition. And so we're just extremely ecstatic about being able to touch 6.5 million employees around the globe and partner with these really great companies. About 40 of them are Fortune 500 companies. And so certainly excited about the opportunity that we have to make an impact when it comes to gender parity and providing them with strategic direction. That's really what we're all about. It's not just talking about it, not just providing research and data and analytics, but it's also providing real solutions to help companies and organizations achieve gender parity with a lens on racial equity.
Yeah. And I think the good thing as well, you've got the case studies across all the different businesses that you work with, right? So you can share that. This isn't sort of research based on theory. It's actually what are these organizations doing, what's working, what's not, And a lot of that's transferable regardless of industry, even size of company in many cases as well. So I'm assuming, just for listeners, it's funded by those companies, right? The business, the organization. They donate to it. How's that work? Is that how?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's exactly right. So when companies join Paradigm for Parity, so first of all, you're spot on. We are able to share, right, real time, what's happening, yes. What are companies doing, how are they successful? And we do that through a myriad of ways, whether it's our annual survey where we're able to do benchmarking, or whether it's our Accelerating Progress Together segments that we host every other month where companies are sharing their leading practices. So absolutely, we do that. But yes, we are funded through those companies and organizations, and they sponsor many of our programs that we have. And really, it is not required. It is more of an ask. You know, here's some great work that we're doing. The value that we're providing far outweighs what we're asking companies because it's really based on their annual revenue. And we know that not every company is able to give thousands of dollars. Some companies give less, some give way more. And so it's an opportunity, though, for them to invest in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, and to really then be able to see the value that our partnership offers those organizations. And it speaks to their employee base. When employees see that companies are a part of Paradigm for Parity, it helps them to understand that my company is serious about diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially around achieving gender parity with racial equity. So it is really a fantastic partnership and really bodes well for not only Paradigm for Parity, but also for those member organizations as well.
And in your case, I suppose, as a retention tool.
Absolutely. So for me, being able to have this opportunity was a great retention tool. And I think Bank of America has been extremely smart and innovative in the way they look at talent and developing a leader on loan program that would help talent to really leverage their current skill sets and be able to take those skill sets and really elevate other organizations, which I think are incredibly important. But it also provides me personally with an opportunity to expand and grow as a leader and to really build and bolster my confidence. I think I may have mentioned to you that I wasn't real confident in
I don't think anyone will believe that. Listen, I know how it feels, by the way, right? Jumping into that seat for the first time, you can never be prepared, and you never will be. It's a constant learning and growth, you know, and that's what makes it exciting.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you, you know, why is there, from your research and all of what you do, why is there still so much inequity in corporate leadership?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the $1 million question. I think, so certainly over the last couple of years, the research has shown us that women have been disproportionately impacted through COVID and everything that we've been through. They've left the workforce more rapidly than other employees have. And part of it, Chris, there are a few things, right? And I think it not just impacts women, but you think about families and the ability to take care of your family and where that oftentimes falls on, right? But you also think about the stress and the anxiety that has come along with everything else that we've experienced over these last 24 plus months. And I think that has been sort of that perfect storm as to why more women have left the workplace, right? But what I will tell you is that not every organization experienced that. So let me tell you what retains women particularly in organizations. Number one, you have got to create a culture where you have inclusive leaders. And so what makes an inclusive leader? And here's what, let me back up. First of all, you have to lead with data and follow with passion. And one of the things that I am an avid believer is if you don't know where your opportunities are because you are not pulling the right levels of data, then it's really hard for you to manage your success and your outcomes. And so understanding your leadership, who is leading your population in your organization is critically important. And so being able to then take that leadership, because that's the most important or critical pivot point, right? So a lot of times the C-suite, they get it and they're executing, and your entry level, they get it and it's grassroots and they execute. But it's that player coach who is a manager of people in your organization that you need to really focus on and also build an opportunity around. And I used to call it the frozen middle. I was on a talk last week and someone mentioned that, no, it's the magic middle, right? It's where the magic can really happen. And I love that term. And so what do you do to create inclusive leaders? Leaders need to be transparent. They need to be trustworthy. They need to invest in their people, and they need to create opportunities for courageous conversations. You cannot just show up every day at work and pretend that everything's okay without creating an opportunity for people to be able to converse, to broaden their own perspectives, and to do it in a safe way. And so I think part of it is it's creating those inclusive leaders. The other thing is developing intentional mentoring and sponsorship programs, and not only developing that is intentional and those are programs that you have within your organizations, because we understand that one of the ways that people are promoted up through organizations is through sponsorship. And so to develop those sponsor programs for women is incredibly important. Sponsorship can happen naturally, and it does for some, but for most, your underrepresented populations and for women, it just doesn't happen as much as it needs to. And so we need to develop those sponsorship programs. The other thing is for companies to take a step back and to look at the benefits that they're offering. How are you supporting your employees personally and professionally? And through that time where childcare was so critically important, all of a sudden you had parents who were not only working, but they were teachers, they were hall monitors, they were cafeteria workers, they were doing all the same things that were happening every day outside of the home, now is happening in the home. And so how are companies supporting that? And then now you have to think about flexible work, because now people are saying, listen, I love what I do, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my sanity or my family for it any longer. And the model has shifted, and companies have to find ways to meet employees where they are today and still be profitable at the same time. So I get it. I know you're in business to make money, but you also have to provide the right level of opportunities if you're going to attract the best and brightest. And so that's what some of the companies have done and laid that foundation years before this happened. And they did not experience and are not experiencing the Great Resignation. And so I do think that there are solutions out there that companies can do.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start after that. That was amazing. I've got so many questions, follow-up questions. Because the reason I asked that question is one of the things I saw on your website, which it shocked me a little bit when I saw that, as a result of the coronavirus or the pandemic, let's say 1 in 4 women are considering leaving their careers, leaving the workforce, retiring early, etc. Mm-hmm. That was took me back a few and yeah. To be honest, I had you're going to be speaking with my wife in a few days for her show, and to be honest, we had that conversation, and we're pretty young professionals in our career, but we were like, well, if her company's requiring her to go back this many days of the week, that sacrifices the time we have with family and Robin and stuff like that. And we were also having that conversation, but financially we couldn't afford to do that, by many people as well. But women shouldn't be having to choose their career or their family. That shouldn't even be a choice that they have to make.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important for companies to realize. And it's not just women. You said you and your wife.
Yeah, yes, true. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's men as well who are saying, listen, is this really a sacrifice we're willing to make? And what will we do? And you're right. It does come down to sort of economics as well. And some people are choosing, look, I'm leaving. I'm going to find an organization that supports me in the way that I want to work, and they are out there, and that's what's important. And that's why the vie for talent is so critically important as well. Mm-hmm. But there are some other things that I think, as women are really leaving the workforce, Chris, I think we also have to think about what does that look like for our future of women having parity in this area. And one of the things that we've done at Paradigm for Parity is, you hear a lot of conversation around women being at parity at every level in the organization. And typically that's the truth if it's entry level all the way up through mid-level. But then there's a cliff when you get to that sort of executive ranks and above, and especially at the board level. And there's lots of conversation around, hey, we need more women to sit on boards. Yes, that's true. We do. But how do you prepare women to have the right experiences in their companies so that they're eligible for boards, to sit on boards? And so we're helping companies to think through all of that, right? So what are you doing to really keep women in the workplace? What are you doing to promote women up and through the ranks? And then what are you doing to prepare women for operational roles within your organization? Because that's one of the paths to the board seat. And so we've developed a profit and loss leadership accelerator program that prepares women for operational roles. So you think about me when I said, hey, I wasn't really confident. Well, that's what happens. We're not told, or we're not steered in that direction, especially women of color.
Or you don't even put yourself forward, perhaps.
And you don't put yourself forward.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. And so what this program does, what Paradigm for Parity has so brilliantly developed, is an opportunity to groom women to be prepared to take on those operational roles. And so we're really excited about that.
Yeah.
That program.
Yeah. To your point, again, on the website, I saw that women, and 18% come in at the entry level, then 6% of those entry level make it to vice president, and only 3% make it to C-suite executives. And you can see that dramatic drop off as you move up. But I'm sure this program is going to, not only give those leaders the confidence in themselves, but also the organization that confidence in them too, as well.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's incredible.
Absolutely.
You mentioned on the website something that I really was, I always like, oh, this is cool, I'm going to steal this. No, not steal it, but I was just found it really interesting, is you have the 5, I'm trying to remember the name of it now, the 5 action point plan, which I thought was very good and really touched upon some great areas. I'm not going to ask you to go through the entire thing, but could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. And so, when you are part of Paradigm for Parity, one of the things that we do, besides the C-suite and the CEO signing the pledge, we actually ask you to implement that 5-point action plan, because you have to take action in your organization in order to achieve gender parity. And so this really helps companies. We have done a ton of research. And like you said before, we have the real life experiences of companies out there, like your Bank of America's, your Accentures, but also your smaller organizations like your Newmonts, who is a mining organization, who have really helped us to develop and think about what are the 5 core areas that companies need to really focus on to be successful. And so, for instance, I already talked about sponsorship as a part of that, but unconscious bias is there. And so companies will say, unconscious bias, we get it. We do it all the time. But really, do you? What companies normally do around unconscious bias is they have unconscious bias training. And while that's great, that just builds awareness. It doesn't create any cultural change. And you have to be able to create cultural change and create a more inclusive environment. So you have to think about, how do I mitigate bias in all the moments that matter? When I hire, when I onboard, when I'm thinking about who am I going to choose for that special project? Is it be Chris, or is it going to be Sandra, right? And then how am I developing that talent and promoting that talent? And then last but not least, retaining talent. So every moment that matters, all the way to having conversations around pay, is extremely important. And how are you mitigating bias? Bias is not curable.
I was going to ask you that, because on the website it says minimize or eliminate unconscious bias. And I was thinking, can you eliminate unconscious bias?
It's hard to eliminate it, but you can mitigate around bias. And if you do it the right way, absolutely, you can eliminate bias from your most important and precious people processes, right? And so that's by having sort of these bias checks before I go into some of these really important moments that matter, or people processes. I can disarm myself and go into that process really eliminating my bias that I have. But I have to do it in the moment, right? Bias is like a muscle. I have to work it. And the more I work that bias, the better I'm at mitigating it.
It's interesting when you think about it, because in order to mitigate unconscious bias, you have to make a conscious effort.
That's right.
So you
That's exactly right.
so you have to be
It's work.
Yeah, no, it's work, right? And you're right. It's reps, it's muscles, it's doing it over and over again. This isn't going to come easy because by the nature of it, it's unconscious as well. But you're right. Looking at it from the end to end, you have to look at it from the end to end all the way through that employee life cycle as well. Right. Yeah, it's very important. The other thing that you put in there, the third point, was about measuring targets at every level of the organization and then communicating the progress. I see some companies do one or the other very well. A lot of times I see the communication piece isn't so great in terms of communicating the great work. It's one of the reasons I started this show, actually, in many ways, is to share the great work that I saw that was out there. What kind of work do you do with companies on helping them communicate that to the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we do is we have an annual survey. And that survey for our companies helps them to measure where they are around gender parity. And it also has a lens on racial equity. So you're not just looking at women as a whole, you're looking at women by ethnicity, which is extremely important because even some of the stats that you're reading there, that's about women. But if you take a look and a snapshot at women of color, those stats are even more challenging, right? And they provide more opportunities. And so one of the things we help companies to do is to really say your data is extremely important in how you're measuring, and we need you to be able to set targets around areas that you have opportunity. And so by collecting this information via survey, those companies work with an external firm that we hire that really that takes care of that survey. So it is highly confidential and they are the only ones that see the results. All we see are the aggregate results. And what that allows us to do is to be able to come back and say, on a macro level, this is what we're seeing across our multiple sectors and our coalition members. And it gives those organizations an opportunity to think about how they benchmark. But we also talk about those organizations and ask questions around how many of you are publishing data externally versus just internally. And then we're seeing sort of how those organizations have an even greater percentage lift in women at every level in their organizations. And so we understand that by helping companies to really think through their data and their survey and providing that benchmarking, it really does level set for them the importance of how they leverage data, use data, and report data. And it also helps them to think about how am I measuring against sort of my peers, right, in this coalition? And then we'll even at some point be able to measure against sector, right? So what is the real estate sector doing? What is the financial sector doing? So we can do that based on how many companies are submitting their survey results back to ensure that it is fully confidential. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the ways that we're helping companies to think through that. And then providing real-time solutions as to here's what we're seeing at the macro level, here's what you're seeing with your micro level data, and here's some recommendations that you can really take to help move the needle in these core areas.
No, I love that. No, yeah. What about, you mentioned before, I just had a thought, I just want to go back for a second about early in this conversation about you putting yourself forward and managing your own career. Not everyone does that. So what advice would you give to companies of how they identify women of potential in the organizations?
Yeah, I think it goes back to your manager. People really focus on, I like to call it that 50 square feet. So it's that immediate folks around you. It's your peers, it's your manager, it's your manager's manager, and maybe their manager, right? One above. And I think what you have to do is once you create that inclusive leader, remember I talked about there were 4 attributes, and one of those was investing in your people.
Yes.
And so when you create an inclusive leader who's having the right conversations, with their employee base, then they understand not just having the business conversation around where are we, how many widgets did you sell, where, what are you doing around that? But it's also, how are you doing when it comes to your career? What are your goals and aspirations? How can I help you achieve that? What are some of the roadblocks that you're having? And then offering those skip level meetings with your manager as well. And so when I think organizations do that well, that's how you have a pulse on helping your employees understand their career growth opportunities and helping them to manage that. And here's what I'll also say, that also needs to exist. The employee needs to understand that. And so offering opportunities for macro learning in those organizations of, hey, how do you manage your career in this organization? What are some of the corporate cultures that exist here? A lot of times people join organizations and they don't understand the unwritten rules, if you know what I mean, of how to move from point A to point B. And it's really around networking. Who do you know? Who knows you? And helping employees really understand that and then being able to take that ownership. But then it's up to the employee to execute.
Yeah, well, that last part's important.
That's right.
It's up to them to go and execute, right? Because you can have the opportunity, but it's up to you to grab it and take it like you did.
That's right. That's right. And be able to articulate and not be fearful of telling your manager, look, I love this company. But it's time for me to do something different. And while that should be an okay conversation. You said that like that's normal in every company, but let's be honest, it's not. I recognize that.
Yeah, you have the great relationship, a supportive team. You wouldn't have been there for that long if you didn't, let's be honest.
That's right.
In the first place. But most people, the idea of going to their direct manager, and saying, I'm looking for another role. I feel like this is the next step for me is going to be somewhere else, etc. They wouldn't get the type of support that you.
That's right. Yeah. You're right. And I recognize that. And that's why it's so important for you to think about the type of environment you're creating for your employees. And that's where inclusion comes in. A lot of companies focus just on the diversity piece. And when you focus just on diversity and you don't focus on the type of environment that allows for employees to thrive and bring their whole selves to work, that's where you really miss it. Because if you don't have that, then you're not going to be able to retain talent.
Yeah.
And so that's what's critically important as well. So I do understand it's easier said than done, but I also understand as an employee, you have to really think about your own personal brand and management. And you can't always, I wasn't always there, right? I spent the first half of my career with my head down working, thinking, if I just do good work, I'll be promoted. It doesn't work that way. And that's the honest truth. If your head down is down and all you're doing is working, I had a really great leader who told me this one time, if that's all you're doing, you're not doing enough. And that's only part of it. Nailing the core and doing what you're paid to do, that's only part of it. And there is a formula out there. It's called PI. Performance is, and I hope I get this right because I don't have it exactly in front of me, but performance is probably about 10%. Your exposure is probably about, so it's performance, it's exposure, and then the I stands for something else. But the main point of this is performance is only about 10%, and your exposure and the way that you really market yourself in a company is the other 90%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Of how you make it to the C-suite.
Definitely. And on that point though, as a CEO, I was wondering, how has this experience shaped you personally and professionally? Yeah,
that's a great question. It's, so personally, it's, so I won't say it hasn't come without challenges because I've had a lot.
You be lying.
I've had a lot of opportunity to fail forward, to be honest. But I think what's really helped me is the support. The women and men who have come alongside me to say, Sandra, we're here for you. Whatever you need, don't hesitate to reach out. And so I've had that every step of the way. I also, when I came into this role, because I was highly terrified, I was offered CEO training. that was provided to me, and it was sponsored by Edelman. So I'm so grateful for their work with the support of a really great partner, Kim Bishop, who is a great partner of Paradigm for Parity and was actually a part of the team that helped to recruit me. But they offered me CEO training that really helped from a professional standpoint for me to organize my thoughts from a strategic perspective, how to really think about my relationship with my board and maximize that relationship. And it also helped me to understand how to really elevate Paradigm for Parity and tell our story in the market. But not only that, how do I give interviews? How do I had given an interview prior to this training, and I had never done that before. And I really thought, yes, I'm a great communicator, I can do this, but there is an art to giving interviews and being publicly quoted, which is critically important. And and so all of that really helped to shape me. And I think from a personal perspective, having the support of my son and my husband, who really has given me this space to grow and to take what I need, the time that I need to really give towards this moment in my career, has been important. So it has been a sacrifice. There are times that I'm really good at what I'm doing with Paradigm for Parity, but when I'm showing up there, trust me, something at home is going amiss. And when I'm showing up well at home and out doing what I need to do for my family, something at Paradigm for Parity is being left to the team to execute and to do the great work that they do. So it is truly a balance. And I've learned to, I tell people this often, is to save space for grace for each other. But I've learned to do that for myself. And that has been one of the most that has been a growth for me, is to just know that I am not perfect, but I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah, you've got to give yourself, you've got to cut yourself some slack, right? We beat ourselves so much. I didn't do this, I wasn't home for this with the family, or I missed this at work. And then, now I try and change my words, which is something my coach helped me with. So he's talking about, did I do my best to?
That's
as opposed, did I do my best to be the best husband, dad, or CEO? And if I did my best and I couldn't do everything, then it's okay.
Absolutely. That's it. That's it. And there is no secret formula. I learned to lay my superhero cape down. I put it away.
Can't wear it all the time. You got to take it off sometime.
Yeah, just to run around the house.
Just to run around the house. Yeah. What would you say? You just signed on for a new year, which is amazing. What are you most excited about moving forward?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so many great things. I mean, look, Paradigm for Parity is exploding in so many ways. Our team has grown. We are now 4 full-time employees. When I came on, I think it was 1. And we have such an amazing team, but we're, besides the Profit and Loss Leadership Accelerator program, which we're extremely excited about, we're also launching a multicultural, multi-generational, intergenerational women's summit that's coming up in August. Our annual meeting is going to be spectacular, so I'm excited about that. So there's really so many great opportunities. We're rebranding. So we're sort of getting a facelift, and I'm excited to be able to launch that. So we're rebranding a bit, updating our website. So what you see there, while great, is going to look totally refreshed and renewed. And so we're excited about that work. And I'm just excited about the impact and the opportunity that we have before us. We're creating some really great off-the-shelf tools that our companies will be able to leverage and use that'll take them beyond just thinking about gender parity, but holistically, how do I support my organization, still keeping that lens on gender parity, because we know how critical that is, but also understanding how racial equity plays a role in this. I have an amazing board, and I'm just excited to continue to work with them. Some really great leaders that are really helping us to drive from a thought leadership perspective. And so I'm excited. And I do feel like our organization, we turned 5 at the end of the year, and we celebrated in grand fashion, but we know that these next few years are going to be pivotal. And I'm really excited to help usher us into that next phase.
Amazing. I think we can all hear and see the excitement on your face as well. Before I let you go, we've covered so much. I wish we had more time, to be honest. We didn't even get into half the things. There's so much great work you're doing. But what advice would you give to people listening that are on this journey and that they want to, do their best? It's not easy, and this change isn't easy. What advice would you give to leaders that are listening? And then where can they connect with you if they want to learn more, get involved? Where's the best place they can go?
Yeah. So the best advice I have, honestly, is just do it. I think a lot. Listen, we have been talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion for years. And I think you have to be bold and you have to be brave. And I think sometimes organizations are too rigid in the way they think about this. It is not rocket science. It is really about creating a level playing field in your organization so that all talent has an opportunity to thrive. And I love to use this analogy of every organization, there's only one CEO, right? Everybody's not going to be the CEO. And trust me, there are people who probably are hired. I know, when you're asked what you want to be when you grow up, some of us say we want to be X, Y, or Z, and those are great aspirations. But I think when you come into a company, there's one CEO and people understand that. But where organizations really can differentiate themselves is, do I have a shot at being the CEO of this company? Can I see myself there? That's where your company needs to be. And if I can walk in those doors and I can see myself there, then I will run through brick walls for that company. And I will give my best to that organization. And that's exactly what organizations want. So I will say that. I will say on a personal note, I think we all have to save space for grace for ourselves and for each other. Right? Understand that this work, while yes, not rocket science, it's not easy. It's not easy to shift and change culture. The other thing is we need everybody's support on this. We need everybody's participation. This is not a replacement strategy. Chris, we're not trying to get rid of white men. That is not what this is about.
It's okay, white men listening. You'll be okay.
That's right. It's not a replacement strategy. And if you're hiring people or promoting people because of the way they look, you are not executing diversity, equity, and inclusion the way that it should be. And so I really do hope organizations would take a step back and take a look at where they're putting their time and their resources, because organizations that execute on D&I the right way, they're more profitable, 30 to 40% times more profitable. Their employees are more engaged. They have more engagement from more people bring their business, their clients bring more business, and you're more innovative. So those are enough reasons. How you get in contact with us is Paradigm, PARADIGM, 4, Parity, PARITY.com. You can reach us there, or you can look me up, Sandra Quince. I am on LinkedIn, right? And you can connect with me, and we're more than happy to get you connected and to tell you more about how Paradigm for Parity can partner with you along this journey.
Amazing. I'm going to post this bit on LinkedIn. So whoever's listening right now on LinkedIn, connect. make sure you connect now. The link to the website is going to be in the comments section below, so make sure you click on that link as well and go check them out. But honestly, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and it's actually I've really enjoyed hearing your personal story, your journey. I feel like it was meant to be where you are now, and now you've got another year ahead. Super exciting, and the work that you're doing is really changing people's lives. So keep up the amazing work.
Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate you having me on. It's been such a pleasure having this conversation with you.